During World War II, Alan Turing invented the first computer to crack the Germans' Enigma code that had dogged the Allies since the start of the war. But when World War II ended, computers and the field of computer science did not. From there began an evolution of the first Turing machine, becoming more advanced, adding memory, and eventually screens. With technology and science moving into a digital space, it wouldn't be long before art followed suit. And with wireframe creations being born in virtual worlds, it was only a matter of time before someone took this cutting-edge technology to create an old-fashioned media, stereoscopic 3D. This is the Hypercube 4D story. A. Michael Knoll is an American engineer who was born in 1939. As a child, he liked to draw, mainly the interior of ships and spacecraft. Later, he would grow more into art in general. To boot, Knoll owned a few stereoscopes and was inspired by stereoscopic 3D media. He graduated from the Newark College of Engineering in the summer of 1961. And in that same summer began work at Bell Laboratories, working on telephone services. 1962 saw the invention of a new machine, the Stromberg-Carlson plotter, one that would allow for determining the fundamental frequency of speech. This machine did this by plotting out graphs of speech data. It would be this very hardware that would bring Knoll into researching computer art. One day, Elwin Berlekamp, one of Knoll's colleagues, showed him a graph that had gone astray due to a programming error. The two joked about using the computers to make art, but for Knoll, it took on a whole new meaning. With the open nature of Bell Laboratories encouraging exploration and experimentation, combined with the cutting-edge tech the laboratories housed there, and Knoll's childhood passions for art in stereo 3D, he began experimenting with making abstract arts with an IBM 7090 and the Stromberg-Carlson plotter. His first art, dubbed the Gaussian quadratic, used random line placements and line densities. While he had experimented many times before, he found the Gaussian quadratic particularly appealing. He would use markers to trace over the lines, making custom art pieces for his fellow colleagues. While Knoll had gone back to his work in assessing telephone transmission quality, his persistence on using the computers for art caught the eye of the higher-ups at Bell's research development, and he was soon transferred to the research division. There, Knowles would write a program for the IBM 7090 that would allow for 3D data to be displayed stereoscopically. The computer would create 3D projections of the data, and then would tell the microfilm plotter to create a left eye and right eye plot. Knowles was able to view these stereo views via a childhood stereoscope. While most of these pieces were strictly artistic, he also used the technique for his research in speech analysis and synthesis. He made a few more stereo 3D images and showed them around to test the waters. It was a success, and people much preferred the 3D images over the 2D ones. In 1964, an art gallery owner named Howard Wise approached one of Knoll's colleagues, Bella Jules, who was making random dot stereograms for investigations of human visual perception. Bella then introduced Wise to Knowles, who wanted to display the computer-generated art in the gallery. Both agreed and dubbed the exhibit as Computer-Generated Pictures. The exhibit would be one of the first major computer-generated art galleries when it ran from the 6th to 24th of April in 1965. The stereo 3D art was viewed via polarized technology between clear plastic sheets. Guests could view the art with special polarized glasses. To the dismay of everyone involved, the gallery was a failure, and not a single piece of art sold. Out of fear that the Bell telephone companies would not see their art as serious scientific research, AT&T, whose funding for the Bell Labs came from the Bell telephone companies, tried to stop the exhibition, but since the money had already been put forth into the exhibit, it would continue. Bella and Knowles were told to keep the exhibit on the down low, and in return, they were allowed to copyright their work. After some resistance with the Copyright Office at the Library of Congress, they finally accepted Knowles' first work, Gaussian quadratic, possibly making it the first ever piece of art made with a computer to be copyrighted. While the Howard Wise exhibit failed, Knowles' work would go on to many other galleries in places like England and Germany, among others. Back at home in Bell Labs, Knowles created a series of stereoscopic projections that, when brought together, could be viewed as a 3D movie. This would be the 4D Hypercube, the idea of which came from another colleague, Doug Eastwood. When the movie was projected through a special prism called a prism stereo and looked at with polarized 3D glasses, you could see the 3D effect. A version of the 3D movies that required the viewer to go cross-eyed were also produced. And without further ado, I present the 4D Hypercube in 3D. Knowles would continue his work in 3D, making an auto-stereoscopic 3D display for a DDP-224 computer. Later, he would go to work under the Nixon administration, go back to Bell Labs, then transfer to AT&T, where he marketed new telecommunications of products and services. After leaving there, he became the dean at the USC Annenberg School for Communication, and finally became a professor of communications in 1984, retiring in 2006. Knowles and the other computer wizards did extraordinary things at Bell Labs in the 60s. They advanced computer science by leaps and bounds. The first synthesized voices, the first CG graphics, the first digital music. And in 1965, the first ever stereoscopic 3D animation made on a computer.